So welcome to event number 11 in the series of the Get More Paying Clients for Your Coaching Practice. And tonight we're going to be talking about executive coaching as opposed to business coaching, which is probably the more standard model for lots of people, but executive coaching. In my business, sorry, our business, Lynn might be able to hear us. In our business, we probably do about 20% is executive coaching, I would have thought, something like that, working with big banks in Luxembourg and their execs and leadership teams, that type of thing. So a bit of experience of that. I'm not saying I prefer the business side of it. What I found is the two complement each other. So I'm going to talk about executive coaching, the differences, how to approach it, how to get the clients, and the different approach from a coaching perspective, and see where we go. So I know I muted everybody a minute ago, but Gareth, can you unmute yourself?
Am I allowed?
Do you have any experience of executive coaching? Is something you do in your practice?
Yeah, at the moment I do have an executive coaching client, which is a new experience for me because I didn't want to do it.
Okay.
But
do they know that? Do they know that?
Kind of, but I had to change the conversation, and it was just, somebody said, do you do executive coaching? And I went, nah, I don't like that. I like to work with a business owner. And she went, oh, that's a shame because I've got a load of money to spend on executive coaching. And I went, oh, sorry, executive coaching. Sorry, yeah, no, I do that, yeah. And I certainly what I found was we were talking about frameworks last week, and we were talking about frameworks. And what I think helped was a real structure to the session. So she said, okay, put together something for me. So I did, and I think there's, they like it to be, month one, I'm going to talk about this. Month two, we're going to do this. Month three, we're going to. Whereas, although you have a framework with a business coach, with an owner of a business, it's looser because you generally talk about what that business owner wants to talk about in that week, if that makes sense. But they very much like the framework of this is a 6-month program, and month one we do that, month two we do that, month three we do that, month four we do that. And it kind of works. It kind of works. It's good. There's frustrations. I find everything has to be signed off. I'm working with the person is a CEO, but she still has to go to the chairman for approval, and she has to go to the CEO of the higher organization. So it's a layered organization. And she still has to do that for all her approval. So we can put together as many plans as we like, but she's still got to ask for permission. And then sometimes you spend a lot of time working on something, and you talk about something and you think you've done some really good work, and then she comes back the next week and says, oh yeah, that's all out the window. We have to do X, Y, and Z now. And right, okay. Kind of let's start again. So I don't know if you found that, or
I think the way the contract starts, we've got this two. I think there's two types. Sometimes we get people who the HR department will approach us and say, we've got a new exec, coming up from the ranks, needs some leadership coaching, this sort of thing. Can you come and help her or help him? And we jump in there, and we get sort of imposed on the person. Sometimes it has to be a chemistry check to make sure we get on okay, but we're sort of imposed on them. I've come across a couple of times where it's almost seen as like a penalty that they have to have a coach. It's like a penance. Which is a real shame. Other people I know that have had the opposite, when they say, well, I've taken this as a real shot in the arm for my career and a validation and a real opportunity for me as well. That's the way I much prefer it to be. I think that's how it's normally positioned. But yeah, I think the other difference is we tend to go for a initial term, a rolling term of months or something like that, or sessions, which I don't do on the business side. I'll go for probably 6 months minimum. It just continues afterwards, but they like to have it into bite-sized chunks. They want to know when the end is going to be, I think, as well. Certainly the HR people. But I've had exec clients who started on that basis, and that was, 5.5 years ago, and we're still together now. So if the value's there and you keep the relationship, I think, as you say, what you do in the first 6 months is pretty structured. But after that, it sort of wanders off, if you like, into other areas, and that's where the relationship really builds. So it is a different approach to it, but having a fixed term, and the decision maker outside of their scope of reference can be challenging sometimes as well. I had it doesn't matter who it was, but in Luxembourg, it's a senior guy. He's a CEO of the company, a big organization, and he wanted to order some printer cartridges. And he said to get printer cartridges just for his own, for a printer in his office or something, he couldn't go and buy them. He had to go through. He had to get approved by the financial director. Had to go to he had to go to London for approval, then across to Ireland for approval, then back and into HR and to the buyer. And he said, I went out and did it myself in the indie sport. But they have no authority, that, as we would think in business owner terms, entrepreneur. You want some printer cartridges? Will you go and get them? It's a different approach. You have to recognize they don't have the authority that sometimes the business owners do. So it is a slightly different approach as well.
Yeah, it's weird what you're saying, because over in the US, it's actually a badge of honor to have a coach. I think certainly, I was going to say the UK, but from what you're saying, maybe Western Europe is, we're sort of behind that track curve. We're probably 3, 4, 5 years behind that. I think.
Yeah, at least. I think again, for the working with American-based companies over here, it's different, because American-based companies have this different American philosophy where a coach is seen as a badge of honor, an opportunity to grow and build and develop. Whereas sometimes for other organizations, let's say, it's seen as, you get a phone call sometimes saying, look, this guy is really upsetting the team. He can't do this. He can't lead, and he can't. Can you come and fix it? Well, probably not. I don't know. Who recruited him? Who hired him? Put him in post. He's the guy that needs sorting out, not the person who's cocking it up. But you tend to be a patch over the cracks if you're not very careful, which is not really the way we operate, I don't think.
Well, I mean, what I do more of is, and I don't know if you can class this, but if I'm working with a business owner and they'll say something like that to me, I'll say, look, I'll come in and do a workshop with the team, with the whole team. And some of that is leadership and management for executives.
Yeah.
Some of it is team stuff for everybody. Some of it is sales stuff for, the sales team, whatever. So yeah, it kind of gets me in the door that way.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, but again, I think the relationship develops. I know I've had a number of meetings with, and some very senior people. Either they've chosen to get a coach themselves and they contact us, or where they get their HR people to come and do it as well. Had meetings, and only a couple of times have I sort of withdrawn from the relationship at the meeting. But basically, I didn't think I was the coach for them, because if I have somebody who is polar extremes to my personality, knowledge and experience and everything, and they won't allow me to coach them, I've got nowhere to go. I can't really do my job. It's going to become irritating to them in the end if we're not very careful.
Well, so I said now, I've had this about 18 months ago now, where a business owner would say to me, okay, I've got this, manager, I need coaching, and this is what the outcome I want. I want him to be able to do this.
Yeah.
Yeah, but is that really, that's not really what coaching is, kind of thing. This is my output that I want you to impose on him.
Yes,
right. That's wrong as well. I think it's.
I think what I found with execs is when you sit down with them, I get given a brief by the HR department or the director, whatever it is, and they say, here's what this person does and what they're doing. Here's their appraisal, and here's all the notes and bits and pieces. And they give me some idea of what they're like in their job and how they're perceived. And we do a 360 with their team and this sort of thing.
Yeah.
And then you sort of sit down with this gal or guy and say, okay, talk to me about your plus one. Talk to me about your team. Talk to me about, and they just go, please throw it all out there. And it's like, my goodness. And you can see how sometimes these people are being treated by the organization. And that sometimes, not so much in business coaching, but certainly in exec, sometimes we're there to sort of paper over the cracks and try and calm things down. Or one of the briefs I had was make sure he doesn't leave. Well, how can I do that? We either give him champagne every week or something. Whatever you don't, make sure he doesn't leave. Ridiculous. But it means we're doing the wrong job. That's not the job that we do. Something else is broken. So we have to be a little bit careful with some of these exec coach briefings as well.
Yeah. What do you think about the process? Because you sit down with a business owner, and in a sales meeting, you can call it whatever you want, but it's a sales meeting, discovery call or whatever. Yeah. But you're there to sell, really. And they make the decision, they buy or they don't buy, and that's it. Whereas what I found is it's, oh, I need to get approval through this conduit, and then and then you need to be in accounts, and you need to get into the billing cycle and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
How does that differ for you?
I think it tends to be mostly if it's a company, they tend to come to us and they say we want to get you onto the approved supplier list first.
Yeah.
That's job number one, on the approved supplier list, and then they say now we can place you into working with our team, and they want to be interviewed. They want to talk to me about what I'm going to be doing and get to know me. Then they introduce me to the people who want to be coached. It does take a long time though. It can take quite some time.
Yeah.
I tend to want to meet their people off site as well, not in the office. And what I say to them, and I say this to I've only lost one potential client by doing this. I said to the HR director, look, whatever I talk about with your employee, with your team member, I'm not going to tell you what he says. He said, well, that's no good. I want a weekly report. I said, well, it's not.
Yeah.
You're going to get a weekly report. You want to know what we say, you talk to him. If he wants to share it with you, that's fine. My job is to support him. I'm his coach, not yours. And this is one of the different sort of relationships I think people need to understand. If I'm working with an individual, I'm their cheerleader. I'm there to help them. If the consequence of that is it helps the organization, great. But I'm their coach first and foremost. You can't be a coach for an organization and just kick him along and hope for the best.
Well, so, I mean, certainly what I said to Mo was, what we discussed doesn't go to anyone. I'm not going to speak to a chairman or the trustee or whatever. I'm not going to do anything, right? Save for two things. One is, I think you've broken the law, or you're about to break the law, or you're going to harm yourself or others. Then I kind of have to say something. That's my rule. Talk to me about 360. You mentioned it with your exec on 360 reporting, because I've had a very bad experience personally with 360 reporting.
Okay.
Not a huge fan of it.
Right. They have to be very careful with it. And I position it with the person I'm coaching, the coachee first, before we start. And I say, look, I want you to nominate 6 people that you would be comfortable to ask for feedback from. And then I want you to nominate 4 or 5 people that you wouldn't be comfortable as well. And they get it. I say, look, because what's going to happen, this 360-degree feedback, first of all, it stays with me and you. It's not going to go up to the boss. They're +1, they're +2. It's totally confidential. We position with the other people as well. I speak to everybody. I interview them all individually as well, and we set it all up. So it's all done through me, and I sort of not exactly filter. They fill a questionnaire in, they give me the answers, and I talk to them about it. But it all stays with me, and it works reasonably well, providing it's done in a very safe environment where the deal is that the person filling the questionnaire in, they don't tell anybody else either. And they only talk to me about it. It's confidential, and then away we go. So we've done a number of those, our little template for it, different questions. Most people are really happy to help. Actually, the best responses I get from people on the 360s typically would be, I think he's a great guy. I want him to do really well. If he can just do this, it'd be so much better. If he can be more assertive or more decisive, whatever. Okay, great. And that's a very positive 360. I've very rarely had, I'm trying to think, I don't think I've had anybody who's turned around and go, well, he's a complete arse. He shouldn't be employed. That's never happened because we're dealing with, larger maybe organizations. So no, pretty good experience. But you've had a bad experience, have you? With the sound of it?
Well, I mean, I'll tell you my experience because it's very quick, and I feel like this is where 360 got misused, but. I was working in a place called Air Command down at High Wycombe, and although I had a wide remit across stations, I only had actually 3 or 4 people directly reporting to me.
Yeah.
And what I don't feel like I got very high up in forces, but certainly got to a level where 360 reporting was a thing to advance to the next rank, right? Yeah. And I came into this job. And I said to one of these guys, I said, look, this is your project. I want you to run with it. And I want you to just, every week, let's check in kind of thing. It's your decision, you run it. But just every week, let's just have a quick 5-minute catch up about it. And anyway, about 3 or 4 weeks later, I hadn't heard anything. So he came into my office for something. And I said, oh, how are you getting on with X? Right? And he said, "Oh yeah, very well, blah blah blah." Anyway, yeah, the next week I got 360 reported, and he was one of the people that got asked. Anyway, you don't know. You obviously, it's all confidential, so you don't know who has said what, but you know because of the types of sentences that they say, and you kind of match it to the person. Anyway, this person said I was a micromanager, right? And I can only trace it to this one incident. Now that then impacts my report, if that makes because then my direct report, hammers me for that, if that makes sense. So I feel like it got misused in that sense.
I think that is a misuse of a 360. It shouldn't be used for anything to do with discipline or promotion. It's all to do with development. That's it. And if I'm speaking with I'll let the organization know we're going to do it. The answers that we have on the form stay with me. They don't go anywhere, and obviously I have a conversation with them. And I don't share notes with anybody. I sort of filter and give a debrief to the coachee, if you like. But I don't feed it up the line. And yeah, most people, they don't use it in a divisive way. I've had people try and use it in a divisive way. Make sure you speak to Bob, because Bob's got some good points to make about this guy. Yeah, well, flipping heck, I will speak to Bob, but I want to speak to other people as well, because so you have to be careful. You can get trapped in exec coaching, I think, in sort of internal politics and structure if you're not very careful.
Definitely.
Where we can become the excuse that the person uses to leave or to whatever. Who knows? We can be the catalyst as well. So you've got to tread a bit carefully. But but on 360s, yes, so far so good. So far so good.
Yeah, it's interesting to say that, because half the conversation that I'll have with an exec coaching client is how they're going to approach a certain conversation with their boss.
Yeah.
And that takes up half the time. What are they going to say? How are they going to say it to get the best result for everyone, and that kind of thing, which you wouldn't get with a business owner, because they would just do it.
No, exactly. It is. I found the pace can be different as well. We look at DISC profiling, personality profiling, and we do that with the execs as well as business owners as well. And certainly when we're working with people up in, typically in Luxembourg, we have more people maybe on the C and S side of the spectrum rather than the D and the I side. So entrepreneurs on this side, and maybe more the accountants and the lawyers and the execs on this side. And I know I had that guy, he came to me. It's very strange. You won't want me to tell you, I won't tell you who it is, but you won't want you telling me this story. I had a phone call, on email, from his wife about 5 years ago now. She said, "It's my husband's birthday next week on Tuesday. He needs a kick." This was her words. "He needs a kick. Can I hire you for an afternoon to come to our house on his birthday and give him a good old coaching session?" I thought, crikey, poor bloke. Happy birthday. Here's me walking with a baseball bat. So I declined that offer. But I said, "Look, I will meet and go along with it." And he was working in the sort of the back office of a big bank in Luxembourg. He's a highly qualified accountant, very structured. He's a German accountant as well, so structure goes with the territory to a certain extent.
Yeah.
And anyway, he's now working at the commercial end of an investment organization company in Luxembourg. He's now building territory. He's got a sales target. He absolutely loves it. And he went from, but if I looked at his profile on day one, I'd have gone, crikey. But what changed for him was all the sort of the personal development, the mindset, the attitudes, the beliefs. And it sort of changed his life. He changed it, but he realized that he had these hidden talents as well. So, but the pace was a little bit slow to start with. It picked up big time, and he's loving it now. He's got a fabulous job, fabulous future, doing great, but in a totally different field than he was before. He's doing presentations, writing books, and all sorts of things. It's really great, but it's a slightly different approach for those sort of people. That's all.
Yeah, definitely. I get weeks where she comes on the call and she's like, "I want to leave my job."
That's right. Yes.
Right.
Doesn't happen with business, does it? Well, maybe it does, but not quite so much.
Are we making a decision now or what? What's the process? How do I deal with this? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's.
But I think there's also a tendency, and I cut this off real quick if it starts. Is where if the person I'm working with starts to bitch and moan and complain about their +1 or the team or the organization, or they did this and they did that, it's like, crikey, we can't fix that. We're going to fix what we can and not that. And once they get away from the blame and making all this sort of the excuses, if you like, then we can move forwards. But they do have this, not mentality, but some people that come in, they want to blame everybody else. how they've been treated, how they've been this. Well, it's happened 2 years ago, and they were overlooked for a promotion 5 years ago, and crikey, forget it. We're here. We start from here. We go forwards. Once they get that, then they really start to make some progress, which you don't get with business owners. Business owners never say, "Well, I was overlooked for a promotion 5 years ago." That doesn't happen. It doesn't work in their world.
It's the classic employee mindset, though, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it is. Yeah,
it's an employee mindset. Yeah, definitely.
But did you find as well that people want I guess what we call the entrepreneur mindset, the sort of that we have as coaches and business owners ourselves? They want that entrepreneur spirit building into some of their people as well. There's the risk taking or change, or doing things slightly different and doing things in a different way. Or they want that. The things we take for granted because we have to in survival mode. They don't. I do think there's a big value we can bring there, rather than they wheel out some old boy who's retired 20 years ago from the organization. They bring him back as a coach to coach the new managers coming through.
Yeah, I know, yeah, I know, yeah. And a lot of that is educating that you can support risk taking and all that kind of stuff, but you've got to own it as well.
Yes.
And yeah, there is that business. Yeah, I agree. You've got to put that business owner mind into the kind of employee. You've got to mold it together, haven't you? I think so.
I was told they were going to get one organization in Luxembourg. They were going to get a coach to come in, and this coach had been in the financial services sector as an employee for 30 years, 25 years, had left to become a coach, and now is coaching people within the same organization.
Brilliant.
Well, that's great. That's very good. So through what filter do they see your organization? There's the same filter as you've all got. So what's going to do is consistent, status quo, no change, don't rock the boat. And they said, yeah, we don't want that. I said, no, I bet they know everybody. They're on first name terms with everybody. Yeah, they're very well known, well liked. Well, great. You don't want that as a coach, do you? You want that as somebody to come and make the tea for you. They make the tea, I'll be the coach, and they got it, and we went in there, and because we go in different, we're not made from the same materials they're made from, which is what they need, actually, I think, as well.
Well, I think it's good because I'm sure everyone in the call coaches across a variety of sectors and industries, and I've had it in the past where somebody has said, well, that I don't think that'll work in this business, and you're like, well, it will. You've just got to take. Because in that industry they do it like this, and in that industry they do it like that. And if you take the best bits from all of them, then it can work. And it's getting that change management as well. Getting that. One of the things we talk about month 4, I think it is change management. How to do it effectively. It's
or how to avoid it if possible for most people.
How to avoid it probably. Absolutely, yeah.
But I think again, there's the difference in the questions that we get asked. I think I get asked anyway, and I notice on the executive side, they want to know how they're doing compared to other clients. How do I rank? How do I rate as an executive against in sort of qualifications and all experience? Anything, Craig? I don't care. I'm interested in what you're doing, not where you've come from, if you like. Whereas a business owner, very rarely. I've never had anybody, a business owner, go, "How am I doing compared to your expert?" That just doesn't happen. They might want to compare on a workshop or something, but they're just happy with doing their own thing and getting on with it. All this looking over people's shoulders and comparing and contrasting. It's like pretty draining, I think, in an organization as well.
How do you answer that? Because I'd be like, yeah. Well, I think my stock answer would be probably top third. I think that's what I would say.
I'd just say that. So you suck. You need another 12 months of coaching.
But you can say, "Oh, I'm at the bottom." You're at the bottom. What are you going to do to get to the
exactly?
You're rubbish.
Yes, you need another 35 years of coaching. But it's an impossible question to answer, isn't it? Because it's how do you gauge it? What do you say? In terms of their ability and promotion or whatever it is. But it's interesting. They all benchmark. They care about what other people think about them, and want this sort of tally sheet filling in. It's very not all, but some, and it does make it quite difficult. I never played that game. I always focus on them, their future, their potential, their growth. And stop looking outside. There's always somebody with a bigger car. There's always somebody. I mean, in Luxembourg, you can imagine, there's always somebody with a bigger something car, whatever it is. So don't compare, because you can't do it. We went to there's a car club in Luxembourg. off subject a little bit here, but car club. It was promoted on the internet, all this sort of thing. So, well, yeah, well, lovely summer evening a couple of years ago before the lockdown, and it got to the Luxembourg Car Club. Meet anybody's welcome. Meet up, come along, say hello, all sorts of cars, this sort of thing. And we'll go along, you know. So we
Did
went
you
in
take your piece?
we took the
Did you take your
truck.
piece?
Actually, took the truck. We
The
took
truck, yeah.
yeah, took the truck. So we rolled up in the American truck thing, took him in the car park, and I said to Lynn, so wow, there's a Porsche 918. You know, the very, very fancy, they only made 918 of them. Porsche 918, that's very cool. Anyway, walked into the pub. It's the bloody Luxembourg Porsche 918 club, isn't it? And there's about 30 of these things parked. And these things are worth, they're about $500,000 each. So there's about £20 million worth of car in the car park. And we're there in our American truck. So they were great with us. They were okay. But we must have missed the small print somewhere, because it must have said no 918s only. So if you're going to go to a car club, there's always somebody going to have a bigger, brighter car than you as well. So best not to compare. Best not to compare.
I wonder if Kevin Sue have any experience of executive class.
Yeah, guys, I generally don't know. So yeah, guys, what's your experience of exec coaching?
A lot of egos in the room.
What, sorry?
A lot of ego in the room.
Oh, the ego. Sorry, yes, good point.
Yeah, 365s or 360. Sorry, 365. Microsoft have been working on this afternoon.
There's no circle. That's not a circle.
Yeah.
That's
pretty self.
The feedback. Strangely enough, I mean, we've had clients that it's worked really well for.
Yeah,
we've had quite a lot of people, particularly Bluestones. Some of the people in the big egos. No, they wouldn't go for it at all.
Yeah.
They wouldn't go near it. They didn't want to hear the bad side of what they were doing.
Yeah.
So that's one of the challenges. And I think the big thing I've found is balance.
Mhm.
Trying to get them to a balanced life. How long can you keep this up for? This working 20 hours a day and never seeing your family. Somewhere along, not looking after yourself.
Yeah.
Somewhere along the line, it's going to catch up with you.
Mm.
So that's big areas I've tended to work on with executive clients.
Do you find there's any particular industry or sector or type of organization that attracts these or big egos into the? I mean, I've got a couple of examples, but any experience, any particular estate agents or accountants?
Well, estate agents I would imagine are one, but recruitment's where I've seen it most.
Yeah.
I mean, it was who's got the biggest car in the car park, who's got the best suit, who's got the biggest house, who's making the biggest amount of money. It was very sort of egotistical. The Stevie P's awards dinners were legendary for, but like it was like who smells the best. It's like who's got the dearest aftershave or the dearest or the most expensive perfume. The money floating around in the room on the night was like incredible. Who can buy the most expensive bottle of wine? Who can buy the most expensive bottle of shampoo? Who can buy the most expensive spirit? Who can not buy the most expensive spirit? But there's a lot of ego.
That's a dangerous road to go down, isn't it? Because there's always somebody going to try and trump you on the expensive bottle of wine. I've seen that a few times. Now, again, the question was, in my experience, I've worked with a number of recruitment companies, and they were fabulous. The ones that were great. But if there's a pattern, what I found is when they've got high skill, high technology, high achievement, or these accountants or lawyers or engineers, or they tend to be great. When you've got, I'm going to put this nicely in case anybody in the recruitment sector is watching, but the barriers to entry to recruitment are pretty low in some.
That's a very diplomatic way of saying.
Is that a good way of saying
that's
it?
A great. I'm gonna write that down.
The barriers are low, and most people can slide under it, And the challenge, and this is a challenge for the recruitment sector overall, actually, is because anybody can do it, but the egos are so high that they are not able to understand or to learn and think, because it's all about the biggest watch, the biggest car, the biggest billing, the biggest that, and they forget to learn. And that's not a criticism of the recruitment sector. I think it's a challenge for the recruitment sector. I work with recruitment agencies as clients, and the people we work with, absolutely fabulous. They're different, so it's not endemic. But wow, if you meet them at networking events, this sort of thing, it's like, my goodness, yes, I can see where the challenge is for your team straight away.
estate agents as well, a terrible culture. You know,
Really?
there was one working with about 2 years ago now who the culture in the office was you never go home early, because if the phone rings, if it's 8 o'clock at night and the phone rings and somebody else gets your sale, that's they get your commission, you know. So they would be staying in the office at 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night just for that simple reason alone. That is atrocious culture.
Yeah, it's just, but the barriers to entry are low, aren't they? This is the thing. It does.
They are very low. Yes.
Which genuinely doesn't happen here in France. If you do anything, you can do anything in France, any trade or any business, you have to be sort of really highly qualified to do it. You can't just rock up as a plumber. You can't just rock up as you literally, by law, you have to be certificated and licensed by the government, which makes it really expensive. Doesn't make the service any better, but they're really expensive, but at least you know what you're going to get. They're insured.
Yeah, I had no idea in the UK anybody can call themselves an accountant. I had no idea about that.
Yeah,
they don't actually need to be qualified.
Yeah, I think it's the chartered bit you can't say. I think
that's correct.
Because of that sort of thing's chartered, but anybody can be an accountant. I mean, most people, you don't need to be an accountant to submit.
No.
You know, unless you're doing an audit, then you need to be. But no, it's a myth that you don't need to be. But I wouldn't recommend anybody who doesn't know what they're doing does it. But yeah, a lot of people out there that aren't properly qualified. I had an accountant in the UK. It was a client, and it was my accountant for my businesses. Ended up doing a 3 stretch for fraud. So great, thanks for that. I'm pretty sure allegedly there was a bit of my cash was taken out there as well. But anyway, yeah, it went down for that one. But still, but ego can be a real challenge. So yeah, okay. Anyway, so Sue, any experience your side of the business?
I did a series of 360s for an engineering company.
Okay.
They've been around for, remind me, Kev, 30 years.
Yeah.
They've never asked for feedback from the team. They've never done an appraisal for anybody. They didn't know what they were doing, but you know, they were keen to move forward and improve in the main.
Yeah.
4 directors. So I sort of sat and did 360s with, I think there was 32 of them I did it with.
Wow.
And then sort of collated the findings. But, you know, all of it was anonymous, as you say. That's really, really important that the team knew that I was an outside source that could be trusted. Yeah. And yeah, they really did open up.
Great.
And then to sort of put that and, you know, feeding it back to the directors, there was a lot of, yeah, well, I know who said that. But
she's fine.
The problem with feedback is, you know, there's a thing, you know, you can choose whether to do anything with it or not.
Yeah.
But, you know, that's fine. But if you're going to choose to have feedback, you know, don't have that attitude. Like they didn't have to do that 360.
Yeah.
You know, they chose to. Then you know, I had a similar conversation with David. You know, with some people we know, and they got really bad feedback. You know, anonymous feedback. You know, and they reacted really bad for it. Well, don't ask for the feedback if you don't want it. They don't ask for feedback and then complain when people say negative things. Just don't do it.
It's better not to bother. Actually, it's better to live just live in denial, and get almost less painful all around for everybody.
A great book I've just read actually called the No Rules Rules, which is about the culture at Netflix. And
okay, yeah.
They have at Netflix. I'm not sure if you know, they have this really open culture of feedback. And if anybody feels like they're not doing something to advance the business, they can call out whoever it is, basically. Wow. But because they have the right culture, it's used really effectively. Yeah. And you know, it works. But I can see how it wouldn't work. That's the thing.
But do you find, and this is again slightly off topic, what I find with execs, larger companies, they're looking for the sort of silver bullet. What is the strategy? What is the thing that we've got to do to transform our business? Is it what Google do? Is it what Netflix do? Is it the 4-day week? Is it, you know, whatever it is? And I'm not sure. You see, I mean, Netflix, fabulous organization, great, not criticizing Netflix at all, but did they become successful because of that strategy, or have they got the luxury of having that strategy because they're in a high growth sector? You know, what came first? Was it the free lattes and the pool table, or was it the success? And I don't know what it is, but you do see the Googles, the Netflixes, and the Apples, this sort of all these bizarre practices. When you look at a little engineering company in the back end of Walsall, and you say, right, guys, we're going to have free coffees, a fireman's pole, and we're going to have a pool table in the back, and they go, what, are you insane? What are you thinking? It's just so far removed. And I wonder what comes first. Is it you've got to get the growth and success, then you can just do your own thing, or do you buy the pool table first, which generates the success? And I'm not sure which way around it is.
I don't think it's about a pool table at all. And I get really annoyed at businesses who post on LinkedIn, oh, we just bought a new pool table for the lads and all those kind of bean bags and all this. Oh, we're having look at us having a pizza at lunch that we bought for everybody in the business. Hate it. Because that is not culture at all. You know, it really winds me up. I think there's a LinkedIn video about this coming out, by the way. I hate it. But that feedback, I think that feedback is part of the culture.
Yeah.
You know, I do. And yeah, it's worked.
I think looking at one of the books I use with larger organizations is Reinventing Organizations by Frederick Laloux, which is a brilliant book about how businesses and organizations can structure different degrees of freedom and this sort of thing. Very well researched. I recommend it.
Oh, so it's not an MBA one, is it?
It's a mini MBA one. You're okay. It's in the mini MBA program. You're fine. Yes. But I give this book or an equivalent book. It might be the 4-day week, or it could be whatever, you know, and they look at it and they either go, that's brilliant. How do we get that? How do we get that feeling, that flavor, that culture, that spirit? Or the opposite, which is, well, that won't work here. There's no way that's going to work. In between, there's no halfway with these things. Either yes, it's brilliant, or no, it won't work. And both are right. Whichever one they choose is right for them, of course.
Yeah, it's I totally agree. That silver bullet is what they're looking for. Yeah. You know, like, how am I going to fix this?
Yes.
Well, you can do anything really. You need to do something. Let's do something.
Absolutely.
Right?
I mean, I had one of the guys. They have a regular, which again is an odd thing for us in business entrepreneur world. That every year there's a salary review. They have to a salary board, and they have to have it reviewed and all this sort of thing. And he said, what should I go in? What should my pay rise be? I said, what do you want? He said, I'd like to go for at least like 10%. So what do you think you're worth? Oh, I said, I'm worth about 20%. Oh, okay. So there's this little gap. Anyway, we pitched in the end, he went in and he pitched for 30%, and then he got it. It's like great. But he had this sort of belief, but in the corporate world, you can have whatever you want. This is one of the differences. You haven't got to particularly, and this is not a criticism, but you haven't got to get a new client, make more profit, make more contribution, add more value, particularly. You've just got to be worth it to the company in some way, and they can give you more money. It's magic. I love it. It's great. I'm going to go and get a job in one of these places. It's great because what you ask for, you tend to not always get, but there's a difference between a different level of value you can add to an organization in a big one as compared to maybe a smaller one, I think, as well.
Yeah, I don't know. I quite like the fact that if I want, if I need to do something, well, that's a sale to me. That's a new client.
Absolutely, agreed.
Yeah. If I want to send my daughter to private school, well, that's a new client a month or something. Something like that. I don't know. Yeah. But it's the salary thing is odd. The negotiation, because I don't know if you work through negotiations with your. I certainly have with mine, and how to structure it and all that kind of stuff.
It's all a game, isn't it? It's a bizarre game. It's just a bizarre game. Everybody knows what the game is as well. It's really odd to see them do it anyway. They do the same thing every year, pretty much, but still.
Yeah. I mean, seeing as we're doing book recommendations, Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss.
Yes, the negotiation one. Yep, love it.
In fact, I've got. There you go.
There we go. Yep. Is he ex-FBI or something, CIA or something, that guy?
Yeah. FBI, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, got it.
Yeah. So very good book.
Yeah. Do you find that your executive clients are better at sort of reading and learning than the business entrepreneur clients?
No.
No, I don't either.
In a word.
I thought they would be, because they tend to be higher qualified. You know, business owners tend to be just jumped in how to go 10 years ago and they worked it out.
This is the truth. So the one I have, she doesn't pay for the coaching. The business pays,
Yeah.
right? Or the organization pays, right? So in my head, she's got no skin in the game.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So we could talk about anything. You know, we could talk about changing the world if you want to.
Yeah.
But actually, there's no real impetus for her to do it, other than looking good in front of her boss, which she probably does anyway.
Yes.
So how do you tackle that?
I think it's got to be, I try and figure out what they want for themselves, the personal reward or recognition or whatever it is. One of the best guys that I worked with is only on a 6-month booking, I think it was. He was a very, very senior guy. It doesn't matter what company, very senior, international. He had offices in Switzerland, Luxembourg, and I think Germany as well. And everybody was not terrified of him, but the place went, when he walked in, the place went quiet. And I remember they contacted me, and I met this guy and I said, look, why do you need a coach? He said, nobody talks to me. Nobody tells me what they think. Nobody gives me any feedback, good, bad, or indifferent. He said they all seem to be terrified of me. He said, and because he was the son of the owner, or there's some hierarchy there. He had an impossible position because nobody would say to him no. Whatever he said was a brilliant idea. Yes, you're a genius, you're a rock star, and he found it really difficult. And what we had to do was for him, and he actually questioned about whether the company paid for this. What he wanted to do was get this self-validation, because he said, I've no idea if I'm doing good or bad. He said, it doesn't matter what I do, I win. And it's true. He's on a huge, ridiculous salary. He couldn't go wrong. The business was fine. He drifted in, drifted out, but he felt he had no direction or purpose or contribution. So what we had to do with him was get him to really be really tangible on how he made a positive contribution to the business. And I got to take people out for lunch, off-site. Take this guy out for lunch, go and have a chat with him, get to know him, find out about his wife and his kids and this sort of thing, break the ice. And he built these relationships with people. And that was how he did it. He really got close to it. He didn't just drift in his suit and his Porsche. He just got to know people, dressed down a bit, spent some time at a barbecue with them, all this sort of thing, nice and relaxed, and revealed his real. He's a nice guy. He's a really decent guy. But this image, this shell that he had around him that was imposed on him, and we had to get that peeled away, which was great fun to work with. He's a good guy, a really good guy, interesting character, incredibly wealthy. You talk about money and wealth. That they invested. It doesn't matter. I'm not going to say who he is, obviously, but the interest rates were so low that they put some of the family money into fine wine. They bought a particular vintage of some wine somewhere, and it was millions. It was millions, but that would appreciate higher than would by sticking it in the bank. And how they're playing with this amount of money. It was just incredible. Fascinating to see. It's something that I haven't bought a vintage for millions in the past few years.
Boy, I don't know. You must have a...
they've got a supermarket, got a Carrefour down the road. They do we're all right. But it is different conversations with them, and that's all it is.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it is. It's a totally different conversation, actually. Yeah.
So, Sue, Kev, any other thoughts, questions, observations, or experiences from your side? I mean, is this something you'd like to develop in your business, or more exec type coaching?
No.
Do you want to think about that, Kev?
No, I enjoy it, because I sort of transitioned into it with that particular company because they got so big. I mean, when I first started working with them, we were turning over 4 million.
Yeah.
When and they're now turning over 130 million.
Wow.
So it's it wasn't something I particularly went down the route of, but I enjoy the business coaching type of stuff. People are more on my sort of level. Which is unintelligent. I
don't believe you.
That's nice.
Yeah. But so I can resonate more with the small to medium-sized business owner than I can with the executives.
Yeah, I think I don't know. So my learning, I think I'd be maybe you'd be surprised, because when you get beyond the smoked glass offices and the car
Mm.
park and the Gucci suits, it's just a guy or a gal who's looking for help. And
Yeah.
what I've found with 2 or 3 people, one of the biggest challenges that people face in the exec world can be, and this is not pointed at male or female or gender or anything like that, but general, is this imposter syndrome
Mm.
where they get elevated to a position. They come from the accountancy team and they're now leading a team of people and they have no clue what they're doing. They're not prepared, not trained, and they really feel uncomfortable. So there is a bridge we can
Do you not think that's the same with a business owner though, who is maybe starts out as a one-man accountant and then has a team and has no idea about leadership and management or anything like that? I think there's a similarity there.
I think there is, but I think maybe yeah, it's a great point. I think the difference is from a business owner, the business only rises to the level of their knowledge and experience and talent. They have the imposter syndrome. They probably do have it, but for the next level up where they could be. Whereas for an exec, they get parachuted into a job that is, above their skill level because everybody else took a step backwards or something. And then they feel really, really uncomfortable, and it shows. So yeah, it does happen in entrepreneur business owner mind, but I think the business owner can scale their business back to their level of comfort, whereas the exec probably can't. They're stuck with it, and they're really outside their depth.
I mean, I've heard this I've certainly seen this, but people get promoted into incompetence.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Drucker. Yeah,
and yeah, absolutely.
And they do, and I think, but people get put into a leadership role, for example, when they come from the compliance department. They're a great, compliance manager, compliance accountant, or lawyer. They do a brilliant job there. And they go, you know what, you're brilliant. Go and run the commercial team.
Yeah.
What? It's just insane. It's not fair to the organization, not fair to them. But because they want this continued promotion, they've got to put them somewhere. They put them into a square peg into a round hole.
That's like in the armed forces. That's exactly what.
Really? Oh, well, there you go. So you got first-hand experience of this, then. Yeah, exactly. A good accountant doesn't make a good leader, and vice versa.
No.
Or not necessarily. It can happen. But anyway, so Kev's a definite no. Then that's great. Sue, is there something you fancy building into yours?
Well, when we were talking there about, sort of somebody coming in and nobody would talk to them and they all sort of shunned away, that takes me back to our hospitality days.
Uh-huh.
A certain person had been known to turn all the kitchen fans off and literally throw kitchen utensils from one side of the kitchen to the other.
Really? What sort of person does that?
I know. And actually tell people they're an absolute waste of space and they really needed to get their act together.
I never use those words.
No, you did not. But I do know this is being recorded, so I'm not going to repeat the words you use. I think,
sorry, Sue, go on.
Yeah, I think the thing for me is we're as coaches, we're in the business of helping people.
Yeah.
And for me, it doesn't really matter what the title is.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about the person.
Yeah.
I actually went out and did some face-to-face networking last week.
Wow.
And I know it was really weird because I automatically go to shake somebody's hand and they're all don't touch me, which was a bit weird. But I was speaking to this young lad today, and he came across fine when he was doing his elevator pitch. And he said, I'd like to talk to you, find out a bit more about you. So we were chatting away today, and it turns out he's not the business owner. He's employed. He's been employed for 8 months in his current role. Mm-hmm. Previous to that, he was in recruitment, funnily enough, and he said he absolutely hated it. Mm-hmm. And now the business that he's part of, they source property for people who want to get into the property market but haven't got the time to find the property or know what they're doing. Yeah. So I said, oh, right, okay, so you change people's lives then. And he was sort of like completely taken back by it. I said, well, and actually that's what you did in your previous role as well. You changed people's lives. And he was like, oh my God, I do, don't I?
Yeah.
So I'm waiting to hear, because he was going to use that line at a networking event he was going to this evening.
Oh, wow.
So I'm waiting for a message back to him to sort of say, yes, you know, stop putting yourself down. You know, what you do is great, and you change people's lives. You know, if you find them the right property, you get them investing, you know, you found people the right job.
Yeah.
You know, and it's huge. So for me, I think it's all about the people.
Absolutely.
You know, whether it's business coaching or executive coaching, for me, it's all about the person.
Yeah.
What their title is really is, you know, an aside.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, you know, whatever we're doing, whether we're an executive, a business owner, or whether we stack shelves in a supermarket, we do that to give us the life that we want.
Yeah.
And it's the same for absolutely everybody. You know, okay, yes, some people do
Where's
go
the
into
off button?
what?
I
Your
can mute
remote
him.
control doesn't work from there, does it?
I can mute him. It's okay, Sue. I can mute him.
Yeah. But no, I mean, if we're talking about books, I read a book. Yes, I have been known to read the odd
Wow.
book.
Okay. Yes. Good.
Usually I just ask Kevin which page he would like me to read from the said book that he's telling me is so good. But I read a book, The Leader with No Name.
Okay.
And it was a really lovely concept to think that, you know, we all go out to do the best job we can, whether it's an executive, a business owner, or somebody, you know, stacking shelves or sweeping streets. They all go out wanting to do the best job they can. So for me, that's, you know, what I would like to do.
No, fabulous. I think, and again, it is just, I say just, it is people, different frameworks, different structures. That's all we're there to enable and help them. It's just maybe slightly different, but different baggage they carry in exec. Maybe that's all. So okay.
That book was The Leader with No Title, by the way. Robin Sharma.
Okay, very good.
Yeah.
Okay.
I stand corrected.
It's going to be a domestic.
so you
It's
should.
very cold over there. It's a bit of chill in the air over there in the Wirral.
There's a topic for the next Mr. and Mrs. video.
There you go. I can see this going now. It's going to be brilliant. Brilliant. Okay. Okay. So any further points, Gareth? Any more points, questions, thoughts, observations?
I think I've said everything I want to say.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
A good book, actually. Marshall Goldsmith, What Got You Here Won't Get You There.
Yeah.
Lots of challenges in there you see executives have.
Excellent.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
great.
Yeah. Who Moves My Keys? A classic.
Yeah.
It's a tiny bookshelf. There's only one book on it. This is a bookshelf, all right?
I've got none of my own books on there. That's the difference. Yours are heavy.
These are all just Asterix, Obelix, annuals. That's what there's nothing of any content in there. Anyway, good. Okay, so well, great to see everybody. There's nothing else for now. Let me just press pause in a second. We'll be back next week. We haven't chosen a subject for next week. It will be revealed. And we want to get some more people coming onto these calls because it's great, the four of us being here. Fabulous. But we want to get some more people. The 2 or 3 people couldn't make it tonight. They were doing other things, which is fine. What is this time okay? Should we change the time or something? Or what do you reckon? Is this okay for everybody? Or it's okay for us, but yeah.
Yeah.
Should be, right, shouldn't it? Okay, well, let's try and get some more people on anyway for next week. So we can. All right. Fabulous. Let me just maybe pause recording and we'll see you next week.